Follow me.
Okay, Wrench, time to show Asara what we can do.
Your Starfighter has been equipped with holographic training lasers. I assume you've read the combat manual.
Star Wars Starfighter is a flight combat game that was developed and published by LucasArts and released on the PS2 and Xbox in February of 2001. The game is a spin-off / tie-in to Star Wars The Phantom Menace and seemed to get quite a positive reception in 2001, with most reviews falling somewhere between 7 and 9 out of 10. Set during the events of Episode 1, the game has 3 main characters, all of which are different types of pilots. Our protagonists are Rhys Dallows, a fresh new member of the Naboo Royal Space Fighter Corps, Vanna Sage, a mercenary working for the Trade Federation, and finally we have Nim, who probably should have a game all to himself because he's a space pirate and that's kind of cool. All 3 of these unlikely heroes are pretty much just minding their business in their own corners of space. However, within the opening missions, Rhys is met with tragedy, Vanna is betrayed, and Nim takes a big loss, all at the hands of the Trade Federation, and now all of our main characters are searching for revenge. Now, that description might make it seem like the story has depth and complexity, and it doesn't, which isn't necessarily a negative, but just know that even though it does have some cool ties and nods to the films, it's about as straightforward as it gets. Continuing that theme, the gameplay is also very straightforward. As previously mentioned, you do have 3 main characters, and from mission to mission the game switches perspective from one hero to the other and gives you the opportunity to pilot one of 3 ships. Each ship feels marginally different to control, with speed, handling and power being the main differences, and in terms of weaponry, they all have their standard laser attack but also feature a unique secondary attack such as missiles, mines and so on. Flying around in space or at low altitude on a variety of alien planets while getting into dogfights with a bunch of different starcrafts from the Star Wars universe is absolutely a premise that is worthy of a video game. There has even been a couple of games that have managed to craft a great experience out of this. Star Wars Starfighter seems to fall short of greatness though, and instead is more of a meh kind of game. This is one of those games where there isn't anything fundamentally wrong, but it is somewhat of a basic experience. The missions have a number of objectives that include taking down bases, escorting cargo, and defending VIPs, which once again are all solid mission types for this sort of game, but somehow each mission ends up feeling the same. Maybe it's because some of the environments feel smaller than they look, maybe it's because the combat isn't that exciting, or maybe it's because the enemies don't appear to be intelligent in the slightest, but something about it feels off. Now, when I say feels off, I'm not talking about the controls. Maneuvering the ships isn't frustrating, and landing hits on enemies isn't a struggle. If anything, the game is a tad too easy, but with the missions being as flavourless as they are, that's more of a bonus because I doubt you'd want to play through them multiple times. I don't want to come across as overly negative because I didn't have a bad time with this game. Its campaign was pretty much over before I could even decide how I really felt about it, clocking in at just over 2 hours. This is one of those action games that you don't have to pay a ton of attention to. You shoot stuff and move forward and enjoy the cutscenes, and then you come out of the other end feeling indifferent about the whole experience, which also makes it harder for me to review.
3 down, 4 up.
Obviously the design of the world is lifted straight from the movie, so I can't really give it points in that regard, but I can praise the fact that they've managed to recreate everything in a faithful manner while ensuring that the ships and mission areas have enough detail to them to be considered impressive for the time. Not all of the textures are perfect by any means, but the visuals for this title don't appear to have aged too harshly, and despite the fast and explosive action on screen, I didn't notice too much slowdown in the game's technical performance. The only real blemish in this department is the cutscenes, which would have been acceptable 18 years ago, but today look noticeably unpolished in a few spots. As the game is part of the Star Wars universe, it gets to borrow the sound effects and soundtrack to use them to full effect. The blasters sound like blasters, and the score from this trilogy shows up also. It sounded great in the movie, and sounds great here too, even if a little out of place at times.
Here they come!
Rounding out the audio is the voice work, which is performed well enough and sounds like the voice actors put in some real effort and took things seriously. It's just a shame that they didn't get to put this into a game that had a little more meat to it.
Let me out! You don't need to do this, Nim.
This way, if I need you, I know where you are.
I'll starve in here.
Good. I'll see you later. Maybe.
Summing up Star Wars Starfighter is tricky, as I came away from it with no strong emotions in one direction or the other. I didn't buy this game back in the day, but if I did, I would have enjoyed it but traded it the following weekend without hesitation. Maybe there's more to take from this game if you're a big fan of Star Wars, and this game did get a sequel, so hopefully I'll discover that this developer's second attempt has more to offer. But this first outing is the definition of fine, so you shouldn't strive to find a copy, nor should you ignore it if you see it on a store shelf for 50p. I guess my best advice would be to have a fun 2 to 3 hours in the world of Star Wars and move on.